Omri turned off his light and drew back from the scene. It looked amazingly real, with the fire making shadows, the little horse munching on his grain, and the Indian sitting on his heels warming himself, wearing his colorful headdress and chief's cloak. Omri wished he himself were small enough to join Little Bear beside the fire. Omri, are you in bed? I'm coming up in 5 minutes to kiss you good night. Omri felt panicky, but it was all right. Fire was going out. Already Little Bear was standing up, yawning and stretching. He peered up through the darkness. Hey, Omri, painting good? Great. You sleep now? Yes. Peace of great spirits be with you. Thanks. Same to you. Omri peered quickly into the crate. The poor cowboy had crawled away into his makeshift bed and was snoring loudly. He hadn't eaten a thing. Omri sighed. He hoped Patrick was making plans and arrangements. After all, if Omri could keep his Indian secret, Patrick might be able to do the same. All might yet be well. But Omri certainly wasn't going to try the experiment again. It was all too much worry. He climbed into bed, feeling unusually tired. His mother came in and kissed him, and the door was shut. He felt himself drifting off almost right away, when suddenly a piercing whinny sounded, and it was answered by another one. The horses had smelled each other. They were not so far apart, and the cowboys wasn't tied up. Omri could hear his little hooves clattering on the bare boards of the crate, and then the whinnies began again, high and shrill, almost questioning. Omri thought of putting on his light, but he was awfully tired. Besides, what could he do? They couldn't possibly reach each other through the planks of the crate wall. Let them whinny their little heads off. They'd soon get fed up. Omri rolled over and fell asleep. He was awakened just after dawn by shots. He was out of bed in 1/5 of a second. One glance into the crate showed him all too clearly that the cowboy and his horse had escaped. The second glance showed how. A knot in the wood was pushed out, or maybe even kicked out by the horse, leaving an oval-shaped hole in an arch, like an arched doorway, just big enough to let the horse and rider crawl through. Omri looked around wildly. At first he could see nothing. He dropped to his knees beside the seed box, and he peered into the longhouse. Little Bear was not there, nor was his horse. Suddenly, some tiny little thing whizzed past Omri's ear and struck the crate beside him with a ping. Twisting his head, Omri saw it, a feathered arrow the size of a pin, still quivering from its flight. Was Little Bear shooting at him? Little Bear, where are you? No answer, but suddenly a movement, like that of a mouse, caught the corner of his eye. It was the cowboy. He was dragging his horse behind him, and he was running, half bent over, from behind one chair leg to the next. He had his gun in one hand and his hat on his head. Another arrow flew, missing the crate and burying itself into the carpet, just ahead of the running cowboy, who stopped. He jumped backwards till his horse hit him, and then he fired another 2 shots from behind his horse's shoulder. Omri, following his aim, spotted Little Bear at once. He and his horse were behind a small heap of cloth, which was like a snow-covered hill to them, but was actually Omri's vest, draped carelessly on the floor. Little Bear, safe in the shelter of this cotton mountain, was just preparing to shoot another arrow at the cowboy, one that could hardly fail to miss his mark. The poor fellow was now scrambling desperately onto his horse to try to ride away, and was in full sight of the Indian as he drew back his bowstring. Little Bear, stop! Omri's voice rang out. Little Bear did not stop, but his surprise spoiled his aim, and the arrow sped over the cowboy, doing no worse than to sweep away his big hat and pin it to the chair. This infuriated the little man, who, forgetting his fear, stood up in his stirrups and shouted, "Tarnation take your red varmint! Wait, I'll catch you. I'll have your skin for a sleeping bag." With that, he rode straight toward the Vest Hill at full gallop, shouting out strange cowboy cries and waving his gun, which by Omri's count still had 2 bullets left inside. Lost my place. Little Bear had not expected this, but he was only outfaced for a moment. Then he coolly drew another arrow from his quiver and fitted it into his bow. "Little Bear, if you shoot, I'll pick you up and I'll squeeze you," he said. Little Bear kept his arrow pointing toward the oncoming horseman. "What you do if he shoot?" he asked. "He won't shoot. Look at him." Sure enough, the carpet was too soft for much galloping, and even as Omri spoke, the cowboy's horse stumbled and fell, hitching his rider over his head. Little Bear lowered his bow and laughed. Then, to Omri's horror, he laid down the bow, reached for his knife, and began to advance on the cowboy. "Little Bear, you are not to touch him. Do you hear me?" Little Bear stopped. He tried to shoot Little Bear. "White enemy. Try take Indian's land. Why not kill? He's better dead. I act quick. He not feel, you see." And he began to move forward again. When he was nearly up to the cowboy, Omri swooped on him. He didn't squeeze him, but he did lift him high and fast enough to give him a fright. "Listen to me now. That cowboy isn't after your land. He's got nothing to do with you. He's Patrick's cowboy, like you're my Indian. I'm taking him to school with me, so you won't be bothered by him. Now you take your horse, you get back in your longhouse, and you leave him to me." Little Bear, sitting cross-legged in the palm of his hand, gave him a sly look. "You take him to school? Place you learn about ancestors?" "That's what I said." He folded his arm. He was offended. "Why you not take Little Bear?" Omri was startled into silence. "If white fool with coward face good enough, Indian chief good enough. You wouldn't enjoy it. If he enjoy, I enjoy. I'm not taking you. It's too risky." "Risky?" "Not whiskey. Dangerous." He shouldn't have said that. Little Bear's eyes lit up. "Like danger. Here, too quiet. No hunting. Him, only enemy," he said, peering over the edges of Omri's hand at the cowboy, who, despite the softness of his landing place, was just now scrambling to his feet. "Look, he no use for fight. Little Bear soon kill. Take scalp. Very good scalp," he said. "Fine color. Look good on my belt." Omri looked across at the cowboy. He was leaning his ginger head against his saddle. It looked as if he might be crying. Omri felt very sorry for him. "You're not going to hurt him," he said, "because I won't let you. If he's a coward, it wouldn't do your honor any good anyway." Little Bear's face fell and then grew mullish. "No tell from scalp on belt if belong to coward or brave man," he said. "Let me kill and I dance around campfire," he said. "No," Omri said. Then he changed. "All right, you go ahead and kill him, and I won't bring you a wife." The Indian looked at him for a long time. Then he slowly put his knife away. "No touch. Give word. Now you give word. Take Little Bear to school. Take to plastic. Little Bear choose own woman." Omri considered this. He could keep Little Bear in his pocket all day. No need to take chances. If he was tempted to show the children, well, he must resist temptation. That was all. And after school, he could take him to Yap's. The boxes with the plastic figures were in a corner behind a high stand. Provided there weren't too many other kids, he might be able to give Little Bear a quick look at the Lady Indians before he bought one, which would be a very good thing. Otherwise, he might pick an old one or an ugly one. It was too hard to see from their tiny plastic faces what they would look like when they came to life. Okay, then, I'll take you, but you must do as I tell you, and you must not make any noise. He put him down on the seed tray and gently shooed the horse up the ramp. Little Bear tied it to its post, and Omri gave it more food. Then he crawled on his hands and knees over to where the cowboy was sitting on the carpet. His horse's rein was looped around his arm, looking too miserable to move. "What's the matter?" Omri said. The little man didn't look up. "Oh, I lost my hat," he said. "Oh, is that all?" Omri reached over and pulled the pin-like arrow out of the wide brim of the hat. "Here it is," he said, laying it on the cowboy's lap. The cowboy looked at it, and he looked at Omri, and then he stood up and put his hat on. "You sure ain't no regular hallucination. I'm obliged to you." Suddenly he laughed. "Just imagine thinking a piece of your delirium trimmings for giving your hat back. I just can't figure out what's going around here. Say, are you real, or was that Injun real? 'Cause in case you ain't noticed, you're bigger than he is. You can't both be real. I don't think you should worry about it. What's your name?" The cowboy seemed embarrassed, and he hung his head. "My name's Boone, but all the fellas call me Boo-Hoo. That's on account of I cry so easily. It's my soft heart. Show me something sad or scare me a little bit, and the tears just come to my eyes. I can't help it." Omri, who had been somewhat of a crybaby himself until recently, was not inclined to be scornful about this, and he said, "That's okay. Only you don't need to be scared of me. As for my Indian, he's my friend, and he won't hurt you." He promised. "Now I'd like you and your horse to go back into that big crate. I'll stick the knot back in the wood, and you'll feel safer. Then I'll get you some breakfast." Boone brightened. "What would you like?" "Aw, shucks, I ain't that hungry. Couple bits of steak and 3 or 4 eggs sitting on a small heap of beans and washed down with a big old jug of coffee will suit me just dandy." "You'll be lucky," thought Omri. All right, and that's the end of chapter 9. Omri's had a chance to talk a little bit with the cowboy, and of course there was quite the action between Little Bear and Boone while Omri was sleeping. Tomorrow I'll begin chapter 10, and it's called Breakfast Truce. And there was actually a little sketch in this chapter, and this kind of gives you an idea of what Omri saw when he woke up that morning. I'll see you tomorrow.